Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Ruggiano Jr., and I want to welcome everybody to Reformed Gangsters, and I want to welcome my guest back, Wade. How are you, buddy?
How you doing, my friend? So another episode of Behind the Gangster today. These things are going real well.
They're going good. They're going very good. People like it. I mean, we're talking about movies. We're talking about people that I know that, these characters are based on. So it's an interesting topic.
And that's always good to get that behind-the-scenes look because, you can't put everything into a movie. We've talked about that in our past episodes. There's only so much, and then Hollywood is going to put their spin on it. But here's a guy that Hollywood could have a field day with if they ever done a standalone. They kind of did with Witness to the Mob, but Sammy the Bull.
Yes.
Great character that we're going to talk about here today. Now, he's been portrayed in a couple different movies. Witness to the Mob, I think Nicholas Turturro portrayed him. William Forsythe, who's a fantastic actor.
Yes.
I met him the last time I was down here.
Yes.
Portrayed him in the 96 Gotti movie.
Right.
And I think, Willie DeMeo portrayed him in the Travolta movie, Gotti. Yeah. So he's had a lot of people, go after him on screen, but that's just one of those guys. It's kind of hard to get somebody to capture what he is and what he's about.
Yeah, and then he had the book, The Underboss's book, which was pretty much his own story. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like I said earlier, I know these people personally, and when I see these movies, it's hard for me to how could I explain it? To look at it realistically. I know them, so and the movies, these, I think Goodfellas, I knew them. That was really a spot-on movie. Donnie Brasco, that was a spot-on movie. Casino, I didn't know them, but that was a spot-on. The movies they made about John, they were good, the Amante movie, I believe, was the best one. The Travolta movie, we all know, didn't do anything in the theaters. It basically bombed out. Mm-hmm. I can't see Travolta as John Gotti personally. And the guys that played Sammy, I don't know. Some of them did a good job. But they really, I don't know if they got his essence. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sammy's?
William might have been the closest one to get it, in my opinion, of nailing it on screen. But he's a fantastic actor. He's a great character actor, so he can portray a lot of different avenues in film. He's been in films like American Me, where he was part Mexican. So he can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, he probably was the best at it. I would love to ask Sammy that question. Who do you think played you the best? I know my father wasn't happy with that cop playing him in that little scene in Goodfellas. I know that, but I would love to ask Sammy that. Hopefully one day I'll get to ask him that question. What does he think about it? I didn't know Sammy well. I knew him. I met him. We knew each other. I gave him the respect that he deserved. He was the underboss. I met him when I was a kid with my father, when he was just got straightened out with his construction company. And he was always tough. He was always not stern, but he was, he was always, tough. I used to go to his club, Plaza Suite in Brooklyn. He had a disco up there. I would go up there with my father, and we would drink, and he'd be up there a few times. And, when he became the underboss, I said it many times, when I used to go into the Ravenite with Tony Lee, he would be in the back with John, and, he wouldn't shake your hand. If you went to shake his hand first, he would just tell you, nod his head to John, like you had to shake John's hand first, because John was the boss. And he would stand, like this. He would post up next to John. And I don't think they caught that on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you have to deal with. Sometimes you don't capture, like you said, the whole essence of a person and how they operated. But again, it's Hollywood, but that's why we got you here today to kind of give us a little bit more insight. Now, a lot of people, some may or may not know, depending on how deep you dive into this, but Sammy was actually with the Colombos first. He was not with the Gambinos. What do you know about his Colombo days?
I really don't know much about it. All I know is that he was released by them. He went to them. There was some kind of incident. Something happened, and they released him, and then he went with Tato, with the Gambinos, and he became, that's where he became a made member. But, that it's not an isolated incident, people going from one family to another. It happens, not often, and it's up to the other family if they want to release you. I know my father, he didn't believe in releasing anybody. He was against that. He never released any of his guys to other people. No, that's not true. He released one guy, this guy, Charlie Looney, that was with my father. His uncle was Russ Buffalino from Pennsylvania, and my father released him to them, and they made him in Pennsylvania, because I said on earlier shows that I used to go up to Pennsylvania every year for Christmas to their Christmas party. And it's funny because when I saw The Irishman and Joe Pesci played that character, not to change topics, but he was the first person to come to my wedding. And that's why I say it all the time. When I watch these movies, I have a different perspective than the average person, because I know these guys. You know, they came to my wedding. I mean, I know them, you know. And so when I see these movies, to me, sometimes they're comical. And I don't mean that to disrespect the actors or disrespect the people they're portraying, but I know them. Like this Godfather of Harlem thing they're making. Listen, yeah, was there a Bumpy Johnson? Yeah, was there a Chin? Of course. Are they great actors? Yeah, they are. He won an Academy Award. But the show is a comedy to me. But to the average person, like, I know people that love the show. They go, oh my God. They ask me, is it true? No, it ain't true. It's a complete joke. It's a comedy to me. So my perspective with these movies are different than a regular person. But as far as portraying Sammy, yeah, that fella, he did the best. I mean, the movies, they had some of it was the truth, some of it was Hollywood, but they never catch the essence of it. Like the Goodfellas did, Casino did, Donnie Brasco did. They caught the grit of it, I think, more or less.
Yeah, and I know when he was with the Columbos, I know he worked up under Anthony Spiro, who's obviously a well-known guy in La Cosa Nostra. He talked about his first hit, a guy named Joe Colucci, I think, where he shot him in the car. I mean, the way he talks about it, you know, that hit just kind of changed. I think he said a Beatles song was playing while it was going on. And he said, you know, the Beatles were playing, he shot the guy slumps over, and that was kind of it. That kind of set him on. But now, for a small period of time, he did leave the life and decide to go straight and was just going to do construction until he got picked up on a murder beef, which then made him need to go back to work to get some money to pay these lawyer fees, because I think you and I both know these lawyers don't come cheap.
Yeah, I also think he went to beauty school, too, to become a barber. At one point, when he was younger, he went to become a hair cutter. But, and that's a turning event in his life. You know, that's the same thing as my father when he did his first hit. You know, he says he was a nervous wreck. And, you know, just like Sammy explained, it's funny because when I listened to Sammy explain that, like you just explained it, you know, I heard Sammy explain it, and then it's like paralleled my father explaining to me his first hit. Like those were my bedtime stories, and you know, it's sort of like my father would say he was a little nervous and he was in the back seat, but after the first one, he wasn't nervous anymore. The rest came easy, and I think Sammy feels the same way, you know, and that's the stuff they don't catch in the movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the internal stuff they don't catch in the movies.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to catch all these different little intricate parts of their lives. And just in that little statement of where saying that he had got out and was straight-laced, you think for a minute, had he not got picked up on that murder rap and not had to go to, you know, get a lawyer for it, he may not have gotten back in.
Yeah,
you think
maybe
the
not.
Difference of, you know, where La Cosa Nostra would be today if there was no Sammy the Bull?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. If there was no Sammy the Bull, there might have been no John Gotti. Just like I said on another show, if there was no Angelo Quaquac, there might have been. I mean, everything is so intertwined with each other. I mean, it's fate. I mean, if certain things didn't happen, you know, life is different. Life is different.
And Sammy, too, like, he was kind of an all-over guy. Like, he done a lot of work for a lot of people. There was a story that I read, and I think I've heard about him talk about it on his show, but Angelo Bruno, who was a longtime boss out in Philadelphia, you know, he got taken out, and it was reported it was his underboss, Anthony Caponegro, I think, that did it. So the New York called Caponegro in. They were killed. Phil Testa took over. They called him the Chicken Man.
He was blown up.
Yep, he was blown up. They actually, Springsteen put that in one of his songs. He blew up the Chicken Man in Philly last night.
Yeah.
So there was another guy that was involved in that, and they put out a hit on him. Now, Sammy somehow or another was contracted to do that.
Right.
His name was Jimmy, I got it in my notes here, Jimmy Keys.
Yep.
Johnny Keys, excuse me. And Sammy said when they kidnapped them, they took them somewhere, I think it was off Staten Island or somewhere. I may be wrong on the location. But the guy asked them to take his shoes off before Sammy killed him, and that was like a little pact he had made with his wife that if a wise guy was going to take him out, he was going to take his shoes off.
He loved her.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's a true story. I mean, that's all real. I mean, Sammy kidnapped the guy, had him for a couple of hours, even became close with the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, but that was Costa Nostra. I mean, that guy went out like a trooper. They went through a toll booth. The guy could have called the cops. The guy didn't say a word. I mean, here's a guy knew he was going to die. Sammy winded up having a lot of respect for the guy because that's, because Sammy was a gangster, and the guy went, just like I told the story about Tony Plate. My father wanted to know he died, and he died like a man, My father used to tell me all the time, a lot of times when people are dying, know they're going to die, they start calling for their mothers. I mean, these men didn't. And I heard that story, Sammy tell that story, that the guy, went out like a trooper and they took his shoes off. There was a message to his wife that he loved her, and Sammy obliged him. And because Sammy that's what kind of guy Sammy was. That here's another family in another city reaching out to New York to clip this guy, and Sammy got the contract, and Sammy was smart enough to get close to the guy and do it. I mean, Sammy was good at what he did.
Yeah. I mean, I think Louis Melito, was with him on that. Now, later, he wound up killing Louis himself, right?
Yeah, Louis died.
So, in the movie Gotti, they try to put out the narrative. Gotti 96.
Okay.
They try to put out the narrative that Sammy's killing a lot of these people to gain control of their companies and to take over their business. Louis Melito, D.B. Bernardo, Louis DeBono. They try to put it that he's doing that. Was that the case, or was there reasons? I know there's rumors of supposedly some of these guys were talking bad about John.
That's the rumor. I mean, after these people died, Sammy did run the businesses. I mean, but maybe because Sammy was the underboss, you know what I mean? And it just came to him. But that was the rumor. I don't know personally, but I mean, that was the rumor in the street that everybody, the joke was, every time someone dies, Sammy winds up with their business, and is it true? Is that the reason? I really don't know. I mean, knowing that life, it's probably a good possibility that was the reason, because it is about greed, it is about money. But I don't know personally. And he did wind up with a lot of them companies, from what I understand.
Yeah, did so.
But I mean, listen, not to interrupt you, even though he winded up with those companies, you could bet John got his end.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, wasn't all, this guy got killed and Sammy got the business to run, but the boss, who was John, got his end. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, the check still went up there.
Of course. So it wasn't all, they might say it was all Sammy, but in reality, it wasn't all Sammy.
I forgot that line that Tony Soprano said in the Sopranos. It was like, shit runs downhill, money comes up. Yeah, you can best believe whoever had it, John was still getting his end.
Money goes up. Without a doubt. You think John, knowing John, there's no way that someone would have got clipped, that John would have made Sammy take over the company and not get an end? That ain't happening. There's no way that's going to happen. No way.
Now, in the movie, they portrayed him as not somebody that was very flashy, very low-key, didn't go out a lot, would go home at night, didn't really, sleep around on his wife. I mean, they portrayed him as a very cool, calm, collected guy. I think they kind of broke his balls about it in the club that night. I think John was like, this is the world's first pussy-whipped hitman, they called him. So was that kind of true to what you know of?
Yeah, from what I heard, yeah. I mean, his daughter talks about it all the time, that he would come home every night and he was just dad. Yeah, but there was a lot of guys like that. I mean, there was a lot of wise guys. I know wise guys that went to church every Sunday, and they were killers. There was this guy, Mike Catalano. He was an old-time wise guy from my father from the 50s. He used to go to church every Sunday, and my father used to tell me, he goes to church every Sunday. I wonder if he confesses what he did in L.A. Like, he never told me what he did in L.A., but I can imagine if they flew this guy from Manhattan to L.A., somebody got killed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he used to go to church every Sunday. Yeah, I believe it. I never saw, listen, I was out a lot. I went out a lot with John Gotti, to clubs, to regimes, to pastels, to the Brown Derby, to restaurants. Sammy never was with us.
Mm-hmm. But he did have his own club. You talked about the
Yeah,
Plaza.
but that was way before he was the underboss.
Right.
He was a soldier at the time. He had his own club, and I think he had an office downstairs. But a lot of wise guys had clubs. My father always owned bars. That was like home base. That was like where he hung out, where you knew you could, if you needed to see Sammy, go to Plaza Suite. Like if you need to see Fat Andy, go to Cafe Liberty. If you need to see John Gotti, go to the Bergen Hunt Fish Club. You know, so every wise guy had a spot to go to.
And from what I understand, that was a pretty happening spot. It had some good acts come through there.
It was definitely happening. It was big. I mean, I used to go up there with my father. The last time I was up there, I was with my father and Ali Boy Persico and my sister. My sister my sister hung out there more than us. She used to go there all the time, my kid's sister. But yeah, until someone got clipped outside, and then they had to close it down. There was a murder outside, and that was the end of the Plaza Suite. But yeah. But Sammy never, all the times I went out when I was in John's company and I went out to clubs with John, Sammy never was with us, so he wasn't much of a partier that I saw. Mm-hmm. I don't know what people do behind closed doors, but what I saw, he wasn't much of a partier.
Yeah, that's kind of how they portrayed it. And then, you know, obviously he seemed loyal to whoever was in charge. He seemed sort of had that old school mindset of the boss is the boss is the boss. Obviously he wanted what he wanted coming to him, but he seemed to be loyal, so they kind of had to tread lightly when they were thinking about taking him out. I think we talked earlier in another episode, Angelo Ruggiero actually is the one supposedly that kind of broke the news to Sammy that they were thinking about taking him out.
They had to get Sammy in the fold. Yeah, he was old school, Sammy. He was Mafia. He was old school. You know, even when John became the boss, you know, like I said, he wouldn't shake your hand first. You had to shake John. And it used to make Tony used to get so mad that he used to do that. But that's you know, what he believed. That was the system.
And to hear him tell some of the stories, him and John were sitting right outside the car when Paul, you know, was taken out. Him and Tommy Bellotti was taken out.
Yeah, they were right up. I mean, he planned. He spoke about it too. He planned the whole hit. Mm-hmm. It was his scheme. Mm-hmm. And when I went to after it happened, and Tony Lee and I went to visit my father because my father was dying to know what happened. When are you going to come see me? When are you going to come see me? Because, you know, he was dying like to know what happened. So finally we went up to see him, and Tony Lee told him the whole thing. And he said, wow, that was a genius plot, you know, to do it like that. And right in the middle of the day, you know, in the middle of Manhattan. And, you know, and that was all Sammy put that all together. So he was good at what he did.
Yeah. And that I think we might have spoke about this in past episodes too, but that guy that owned Sparks, you know, his business went through the roof. It's known. Yeah. And I think there was a guy a couple of stores there. He's like, if I'd have known it was going to do that for his business, I wish he'd have killed him in front of my place down there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So those kind of things can live in infamy because you see that sign of him laying out half out of that car he was driving. I don't know if that was a Lincoln or what it was.
Someone told me too that they don't see. That's why the movies are. Some of them are good and some of them are shit, but they don't catch it all. You can't put everything into the movie. Right. Like someone told me that was on the hit team that, you know, was one of the guys that were involved in it, that when Paul got out of the car and saw the guys coming to him, he actually like went to shake their hand. Like when he saw them, like out of recognition, like he went to shake their hand and they blasted him. Like that's how, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, all interesting stuff. And then there's a key scene, at least to me anyway, in the 96 Gotti, when Armand and the guy that's playing Frankie Locke, who will have an episode coming a little bit later about, they're sitting there talking and it's like, you know, did you ever hear, you know, DB say a crossword about me? And he's like, no, John. And he's like, you know, all right, well, Louis DeBona, did you ever hear a crossword? No. And it's kind of like they're talking and they're figuring out that Sammy may be saying that, you know, certain people said things just to get these people taken out. It kind of starts to click in their mind. But then all these guys get arrested. When these guys got arrested, did you ever in your wildest dreams think that Sammy would turn?
No, never. You know, and I talk about it, and I said it. I tell the story many times. I was in prison. I was in state prison. I was in Allenwood. I was in Otisville State Prison in reception, and I was with this guy named Bobby. His nickname was Bobby the Jew. He was Italian. That was his nickname. I don't know why he had that name, but that's what we used to call him, Bobby the Jew. And he was in reception with me. he's a wise guy now. He got straightened out later on. And we used to walk the yard every night, him and I, because we knew each other from the street with John and everybody. He used to hang out in the Ravenite, this guy. And one night he was late to come out to the yard. So I waited for him, and he came out. And as soon as he walked up to me, he went, "Oh my God, I just got off the phone." He said that we used to call John that guy. We never said John. We used to say that guy. We knew it was John. He goes, "That guy's co-defendant flipped." And I said, "Who, Frankie?" Like, to me, right away, Frankie Lowe came into my brain. I said, "Who, Frankie?" He went, "No, Sammy." I said, "Sammy, are you kidding me?" I said, "That's the end of John," and then we just walked the yard. We were very upset over it, like it wasn't, I was upset because I was close. John always liked me, I got along great with John. He always looked out for me. And I knew that was probably going to be curtains for him. And that's how I found out. And I think the 96 movie, I would give that movie more heads up than I think the Travolta movie. The difference between the 96, I think Armand Assante was the best John Gotti.
Yeah.
But I think the difference, my opinion, the difference between the 96 movie and the Travolta movie is John Jr.
Yeah. That's
the difference. John Jr. didn't have his hands in the 96 movie, but he had his hands all over the John Travolta movie. That's why it's a little different than the 96 movie, especially with certain, like what you talked about earlier. That's because John Jr. was involved in the in the 96 in the John Travolta movie. That's the difference between the two movies. Jr. was involved in the Travolta movie and not the other two movies or the 96 movie.
Yeah, and that movie went through a ton of rewrites, reboots, directors. Originally, I think Stallone was signed on to play Gotti
in the beginning,
and that fell apart. I think Al Pacino and Joe Pesci were involved.
Well, Joe Pesci, I think, sued them.
He did. He put on a lot of weight, from what I understand, to play, I think, Ruggiero.
Yeah, he sued them.
And then the production got halted, and then he sued him. Yeah, because he had put on quite a bit of weight to do that.
I don't know whatever happened to that, but he sued him. But I think that's the difference between the movies, that Junior had his hands on. Junior. I just couldn't, I couldn't, because like I said, I have a different perspective on these movies than the average person, because I know these people. Like, for me personally, don't get me wrong, John Travolta's a great actor. But to me, he's Vinnie Barbarino. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Welcome Back, Carter. He's not John Gotti, and he's Vinnie Barbarino. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, when I look at that movie, I just can't get past it's John Travolta playing John Gotti. I can't get past it. Mm-hmm. So that's why I have not watched the whole movie from beginning to end. I watch it in bits and pieces because I just can't get past John Travolta. And like I said, not because he's a bad actor, because I just can't see him as John Gotti.
Yeah.
Knowing John Gotti the way I know John Gotti, I just can't see him. I could see De Niro playing John Gotti, a younger De Niro, not him today. He's 79 years old. Right. I could see a Goodfellas De Niro playing John Gotti, a Casino De Niro playing John Gotti. I think he would have been a great John Gotti, because just out of those other roles, he acted more like John Gotti playing other characters than these people act as playing John Gotti. If that makes sense to you?
Yeah, no, it does 100%. So when Sammy does flip, obviously it's detrimental to the Gambinos. John goes down, Frank Locascio goes down, a number of other people, go down through all this. And then he wasn't the first to do it. Obviously there's people that's been documented on record that's done it before. Abe Kid Twist Relis done it.
Murders Incorporated.
Joe Valachi. So he wasn't the first, but I think he was probably made the biggest impact, I would think, at that time, because John was all over the news. He's on Time Magazine. And so now when he does this, it puts John down. And then he really, I guess the life was just so much in him, he gets I forgot how many years he wound up doing, even after all the murders, because the government wanted Gotti. Yeah. They really, at the end of the day, didn't give a damn how many people Sammy killed. They wanted Gotti.
Right.
So they get their man, and then he goes to Arizona, and he still stays in, somewhat of a criminal lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, he did 5 years with the murders. I mean, I think he did around 5 years. He gets out, he gets relocated to Arizona, and then eventually he gets locked up for selling ecstasy. You know, he still to this day says he just did it to protect his family, that he wasn't hands-on. I mean, the law enforcement says otherwise because of the tapes they have. You know, his son was involved. I mean, and he wound up doing what, another 17 years. Knowing Sammy, knowing what we know about Sammy, was he involved? It's hard to say. I mean, you know, it's hard to say. I want to believe that he wasn't, that he really did just get involved to protect his family, his son and his daughter, because I mean, it would be terrible. You know, like I look at myself like, if I was going to cooperate and then still commit crimes, you know, I would always think he would be smarter than that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what's the point?
Yeah. And you know you're already under the watch list. I
Right.
mean, you're living up under the government already.
And you know they're not going to, and the government's not going to do nothing for you.
Right.
Because it's a blight. It makes them look bad. Like, here we are, you killed X amount of people, we put you back in the street, and you want to commit crimes. Don't get me wrong, there's guys that cooperate that are committing crimes because that's just who they are. They just don't want to change. They don't have the capacity or to create new things. I don't want to believe that Sammy was incapable of that, you know, because he was an intelligent guy. He knew how to earn money, and I want to believe that he just did it to help his family.
Yeah,
you know,
I can see him doing that. I can see him taking that bit. I mean, he's already a little older.
Because that's what kind of guy he was. He wasn't going to let his kids go to jail. He wasn't going to let his wife go to jail. That wasn't happening. You know what I mean? He was too much of a man for that. He wasn't going to do that. Right. You know, just like I wouldn't do that or you wouldn't do that. And he took it on the chin.
Yeah. And then he gets out. He starts his own podcast, and he's doing very well.
Now he's doing great. He's Hollywood Sammy.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to go on his new show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Sammy.
Open invite there for this man.
Yeah. Now, Our Thing TV.
Our Thing TV is doing well. The things he's done in the past with Francis have been very well.
Yeah, no.
And I mean, I guess to have somebody that is now free to give all those pieces of information, a lot like we're doing here, that was that hands-on, that they're involved with all those murders, right there with John. I mean, it's, you know, whether people agree with the decisions Sammy made or not, it's still must-see TV for people that are, you know, interested in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a unique lifestyle, and not, you know, that's why, I mean, it's a unique lifestyle, and not everybody could live it, not everybody could do it, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, and people want to know about it because, you know, it's like I said, it's a unique lifestyle. You know, we were talking about it earlier, you know, like the Uvas, the murder that took place on Christmas Eve of the people that were robbing social clubs. I mean, here it is, Christmas Eve. They're gunned down in front of a church in Ozone Park, and the shooters, I'm sure, after that murder, went home and had fish dinner with their families because Italians eat fish on Christmas Eve, this Feast of the Seven Fishes, and put toys together for their kids. I mean, it's a unique lifestyle, and people are intrigued by it, you know?
Yep, sure is. Well, I mean, did you have any personal interactions with Sammy throughout the streets, or was you kind of running on different sides? Did you have any personal interactions?
I never did any business with him. My father did. You know, like I said, I would see him all the time at the Ravenite. You know, I was, hello, how are you? You know, we have a few words. You know, I met him one time. I went there with some girls. It was on this feast, Saint Gennaro feast, and he was in there and he was laughing. I walked in with two girls that were up from Florida. They were friends of mine, good-looking girls, and he was there. But I met him a lot, most of the times, you know, at weddings, at Christmas parties, and at the Ravenite, and we would always talk. I was always respectful to him. He always said hello to me, asked me, you know, how's your father, you know. Yeah, I got along well with him, but I never did any business with him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it seems, looking back over the track, I mean, obviously he had a lot of successful businesses himself, but looking back from another perspective, I don't know if I'd want to get too close to I don't know if I want my business to get too big, because then it became where you kind of looking back over here, well, I might want that for me, you know what I'm saying?
I never had that. I didn't have anything that big to worry about. But you know, listen, for me, I can only speak for me. I knew a lot of guys that were killers. You know, a lot of my father's friends did work for the mob. You know, and I never, you know, it didn't faze me. Like I was in that frame of mind. Like even in prison, I was in Art to Kill in '79, and I was in a 4-man room with 3 murderers and me. And guys used to ask me, how do you sleep in that room at night with them 3 people? You know, like, you know, they were all Italian, you know, Stevie Mangano, Tommy Barbado, and Salvatore Genesi. You know, they were 3 murderers. They were all in there for murder, well, manslaughter, murder. And you know, I used to tell everybody, yeah, I just feed them veal cutlets. Because my mother used to bring me up veal cutlets. They go, how do you sleep in there with them 3 guys? I said, I just feed them veal cutlets. You know, so, you know, I just grew up in that environment. So it didn't, you know, I didn't look at it that way.
Well, I mean, and at the end of the day, Sammy said at the end, I think it was one of them interviews that he did, I don't know if it was Diane Sawyer or which one, but he said, you know, John and I both played games. He played checkers, I played chess, and I won.
And
so
checkmate.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's about wraps it up.
Yes, sir.
It was a pleasure. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to Reform Gangsters. Hope to see you again soon.